Alrighty, so in order to get ready for our math lesson today, we are going to need a few things. The first thing you're going to need is your math notebook. So make sure if you don't have that by you or if you forgot it, go grab it real quick. Go, math notebook, and you'll also want something to write with. And then if you have a whiteboard, you'll want that. If you don't have a whiteboard, you can just use blank paper. I don't have a whiteboard at my house, so I'll just be using blank paper. So you can do the same. But if you have a whiteboard that you'd like to use, go ahead and grab that. But you will definitely need your math notebook and something with which to write. Okay, we're going to be taking some notes today. Woo-woo. So our success criteria for our new lesson, which is on dun, 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 dun. Oh, dang it, this is going a lot slower than I wanted it to. Hold on. Boom. Fractions. Woohoo! So we are going to be taking a look at some fractions, and I'm actually going to grab you kiddos and you over here by me. You are, I can see your face. Yay! We are going to take a look at some fractions today. Now, fractions, you know what? Let's do this. Last year was a crazy school year, and you guys did not finish second grade at the building. You finished second grade at home. So we were not sure if you were taught fractions. So I'm going to look at the camera really quick. Give me a thumbs up if you were taught fractions and you feel okay about them. Give me a thumbs down if you say, nope, COVID ruined that. I don't even know what the heck a fraction is. Show me where we are. I know fractions. I don't even know what they are, lady. Okay, good to know. We're going to start with the basics to get us renewed and ready to go anyway. So that's good because it looks like a lot of us are like, what the heck are you talking about, crazy person? And that's okay. Alrighty, so fractions. You can see the screen here. We are going to talk about fractions starting off with the basics. And the basics are that you are going to partition. And everybody go like this. Go, watcha. I can see you. Do it. Watcha. Good. You just partitioned, you chopped, or you cut something, okay? So to partition, watcha, is to cut or divide or to split shapes into parts with equal areas. You guys partition things all the time when you share things. When your mom says, yeah, you can have a cookie, you got to give back your little sister, then you go and you give some to them, okay? So partitioning is something that you guys do. Now we're going to talk about how to make it equal. Good. I'm seeing in the chat, some of you are saying, oh yeah, I learned this in first grade, and you did. You guys so far should have learned the fractions 1/2 and 1/4. We're going to go beyond that today, and we're going to look at the fractions 1/2, 1/3, 1/4, 1/6, and 1/8. And yes, I did intentionally skip the 5th, and I did intentionally skip the 7th because the state of Indiana has decided that that is not for 3rd grade. So you will be learning the 3rd grade denominators. So you're going to partition shapes into equal areas and write them as unit fractions. So to talk about what that means, we're going to watch a Brain Pop Junior. I'm going to ask you to record your thoughts to these questions on your whiteboard. And again, if you don't have a whiteboard, you can use a blank piece of paper. That's what I'm going to be using because I don't have a whiteboard at my house. The questions that you're going to answer are, what is a fraction? And what is the difference between a half and a third? So what is a fraction? And what's the difference between a half and a third? Okay.
Both of you guys are still choppy. The video ended.
You're supposed to share with
Yeah, still
the
choppy.
whole class.
More.
Fair. Everyone is equal parts of the sandwich. What is a fraction? A fraction tells you the number of parts out of a whole. Not that kind of whole, Moby. Something is whole when it has all of its parts. I love muffins. This whole muffin has 2 equal parts. In a fraction, the number of parts goes under a line. There are 2 parts. You took 1 part of the muffin, and that number goes on top. So this fraction shows you took 1 out of 2 parts. You can also write this as 1/2. What is a half? When you split something in half, you make 2 equal parts. Right, Moby. There are 2 halves in a whole. Half for you and half for me. There are 2 equal pieces, and we each get 1 piece. Sometimes I see a half moon at night, and everyone loves a half day of school. What is a third? We can share this cake between you, me, and Grandpa. We can cut the cake into thirds. That means we divide it into 3 equal pieces. We each get 1 slice. So Grandpa gets 1 out of 3 slices. We each get 1/3 of the whole cake. There are 3 of us, but only 1 is a robot. So 1 out of 3 of us is a robot. What is a 4th? I love apple pie, and this pie has 4 equal slices. You took 1 slice. So you took 1 out of 4 slices, or 1/4 of the slices. 1/4 is also called 1/4. Exactly, Moby. There are 4 quarters in a dollar. So 1/4 is 1/4 of a dollar. I can divide a lot of things into fourths. Like a piece of paper, a cup of water, an inch, or an hour. I think all this sugar is making us sick, Moby. We better cut up the sandwich so everyone can get an equal piece. It's okay, Moby. I got a slice saved right here. Wait, you're supposed to give me half. I guess you can keep mine.
Moby's being rude. I'm gonna give a minute to write down your thoughts. Stop share the video.
You're still
The
kind of
questions.
choppy.
I'm sorry, kiddo. I know. The questions that you were asked to discuss or to write down were: what is a fraction, and what is the difference between a half and a 4th? A fraction, and what's the difference, or a half and a third? I apologize, a half and a third. So go ahead and write down some ideas. What is a fraction? I'm going to write while you write. And what is the difference between a half and a third? So again, you might draw some pictures. You might write some words. You might put some labels. And write down what is a fraction and what is the difference between a half and a third. Okay. I'm going to up into some breakout rooms, and you are going to discuss the answer to those 2 questions. What is a fraction, and what is the difference between a half and a third? We'll go ahead and answer both questions at once to save some time. Okay. What is a fraction, and what is the difference between a half and a third? And here are your invites. Boom. Welcome back. You were asked to answer 2 questions. The first question is, what is a fraction? Who would like to take a shot at that for us? What's a fraction? Christopher, help us out, bub. What's a fraction? There you go, Christopher. What's a fraction?
A fraction is like a or like a third but different. Like a fraction is like half.
Yeah. You gave 2 examples of fractions, a third and a half. Those are some examples of fractions. Good. Let's add to that. Oscar, what would you like to add?
So so fractions are like a way to share, like.
Yeah, if you want to share something, fractions are going to be very helpful. Awesome. Okay, so we can share. We have halves, we have thirds. William, what do you have? What's a fraction?
A piece of something.
A piece of something. Good. So piece is an important word for us. Terrence, something to add?
Yes. So for an example, a half is smaller than a third, first of all, and a fraction is a word problem.
Fractions can be seen inside of word problems as well. Good. We've built some context for these. Fantastic. So yes, fractions are parts of something that we can use when we are sharing or when we are making smaller pieces, such as halves or thirds. All of you guys are spot on. I love it. See, I don't even have to teach you anything now. I can just go back to my bed. Night-night. Ha 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 ha. Just kidding. All right, we are going to take some notes, okay? So I'd like for you to grab your notebook and I'd like for you to open up to your next page. Remember, if you need to make my screen larger so that you can see the notes, you can pin it to make it the larger screen. But go ahead and label your notes fractions, okay? Label them fractions. Today we're going to focus on some vocabulary notes for fractions, and tomorrow we're going to focus on some drawing notes for fractions. So today we're going to take word notes. Tomorrow we're going to take picture notes, okay? So fractions has a couple of vocabulary words that we need to know. And the first vocabulary word that we need to know when talking about fractions is a whole. And as we saw in the Brain Pop Junior video, it's not a whole like a hole in the ground. It is a whole like all of something, the complete set, the total amount, a whole. Okay, so this is what you say when you're having a pizza and you're like, I'm so hungry, I could eat the whole thing. You're talking about all of it. Okay, so we define this whole as all parts of an item. Let me back up there. Or set. So an item would be one thing that has many parts, like a pizza, okay? That is an item that has many parts. A set would be this. These are my fruit snacks that I had for lunch. And these are a set because there are many things, well, there were, I ate them all, but there were many inside of here. So we would call these a set. So a set is when one thing, one package, has a lot of parts, okay? So an item would be one thing, like pizza, that has many slices. A set would be one whole group of items, like a package of fruit snacks, okay? We can make fractions of these wholes, whether it's one item or a set of things, okay? So whole, that is an important word for us to know. So if we know the word whole, we also must know the word part, okay? A part of something is a piece of something or a smaller amount of the whole. So part is the next word that we need to know. Part. A part is a piece of a whole. A part is a piece of a whole. So in the example of pizza, one slice would be part of the pizza. In the example of my fruit snacks, one cherry fruit snack would be a part of the whole set, the whole bag, okay? So whole and part, those are the big ideas when it comes to fractions. You have the whole thing, whether it's an item or a set, and then you have parts of that item or that set, which are pieces, okay? So a part is a piece of a whole. So then when we combine these two together, we get a fraction. And a fraction is both the part and the whole. A fraction is part of a whole represented by numbers. And that one's long, so I'm going to give you a couple minutes to write that down. So a fraction is a part of a whole represented by numbers. Part of a whole represented, which means shown by numbers. Okay, so a fraction is part of a whole represented by numbers. Okay. Now we're going to show an example of a fraction, and we're going to show an example of a fraction and then label the parts. Okay. So if you take a look at a fraction, you will notice that there are two main numbers that are shown. There's a top number and there's a bottom number. Okay. The top number and the bottom number have specific names that we will use, and they are called numerator and denominator. So I'm going to make this number take up a full 3 lines. I want it to be a very large example. So I'm going to create a 1, and that 1 is going to take up 3 full lines. It's a very large 1. So I want a big example of a fraction, okay? And then I'm going to draw a fraction bar. Fraction bar is going to go underneath the 1, which is my numerator, and it's going to separate my top number from my bottom number, okay? I'm going to go ahead and cut off whole and part because I bet we're good there. And if not, remember, I'll upload this to Seesaw. And then on the bottom number, we're going to put our denominator. Our denominator is going to be a 6. This fraction is called 1/6. And you'll notice I have that TH sound at the end. It's not 1/6, okay? It's 1/6. Got that weird sound at the end, okay? So this is a fraction. The top number is called a numerator. Go ahead and write that label, numerator. And we're just going to label these. We'll come back and define them later. So the top label or number is a numerator. The bottom number is a denominator. And I'm going to leave those there because those are long words. So numerator and denominator. Numerator, denominator. And after this, we only have one more thing to write, and then we're done with our notes. But I want to make sure that you have the numerator and the denominator.
It's like multiplication
How so?
because you have to split it into equal groups.
Yes, there are equal groups inside of fractions. You have to keep equal parts, and multiplication and division makes equal groups. Fantastic connection, Terrence. Thank you for sharing. All righty. Numerator and denominator. The last thing that we're going to write is the main focus of today's lesson, which is called a unit fraction. Okay, unit fraction. So underneath here, I'll back up a tiny bit. We are going to write unit fraction. And unit is a word that is used to describe one of something. So a unit fraction is one piece of a whole. So a unit fraction. Unit fraction. And that is one part of a whole. One part of a whole. That is a fraction. Unit fraction, I apologize. Not just any fraction, a unit fraction. Okay, as you are finishing up those notes, I'm going to go ahead and take a picture and upload them to Seesaw. So in case you did not get done, or in case you lose them, or in case you're at a place where your notes are not, you will always have access to them on Seesaw. Here we go. Go ahead and finish up your notes, and then this is being uploaded to Seesaw as we speak. And boom, item uploaded to Seesaw. Okay, if you did not finish, you will have some time during work time to be able to copy that from Seesaw because it is there. But I want to come back to you guys and make sure that we have enough time to get through the work portion of our lesson today. Okay, so right now I'm going to ask that you go to Seesaw and you will have an activity that has been released to you. And that activity is right here called Introduction to Fractions. As you're finding that, I'm going to show you that we've done the With Your Teacher. We've reviewed the teaching slides. We have watched the Brain Pop video. We have taken notes on important vocabulary. Now we're getting ready to do some of the work together. So it says complete the add response slide 1 together. So we're going to do this part together. And then depending on our time, we'll determine if we get some independent time or some breakout room time for slides 2 through 4. Okay, so again, excuse me, you are going to Seesaw, Activities, Introduction to Fractions, and click on that Add Response button. When you get there, you will see the first one says notes, parts of a whole. I'm going to show you today how to digitally partition, which remember that means chop, to cut and part, models of wholes into fractions, okay? If for any reason this is difficult for you and you need a reminder later, there are 2 videos from Miss Thaxton right here that show you how to do this, but I want to do it with you guys live right now. So if you get behind or you want to watch again later, Miss Thaxton does exactly what we're about to do right here in these videos, but we're going to do it together now. Okay, so this says parts of a whole. Take notes with your teacher for your reference as we progress. I'm going to show you guys how to create these fractions in picture form. So go ahead and go over here and I want you to click on your shapes icon. And you're going to choose this blue line that looks like a minus sign. Go ahead and click on that and then it'll pop up here. Okay. We're going to use these lines and I'll show you why. Here's what happens. If I want to cut something in half, I can take this line and I can just move it, boom, and we're done. And let's say I put it up here and I don't like that. I just click it, I drag it, and there, I like it. This is better than using your drawing tools because if you're using your drawing tools, let's say I put it right there and I don't like that, I can't move this line. Okay, I have to go over here, I have to erase, I have to redraw, I have to try to get it straight and perfect, and oh, that's hard. So we're just going to use this little line right here because if it's not where we want it, we just go boom and click it, okay? So take that line and kind of resize it so that it is the same length as across your circle. Oops, that's not what I wanted to do. And see, because it's not the drawing tool, I can just go back. So right now mine's too long. I'm going to drag it so that it's shorter so that it goes straight across my circle. And boom, just like that, you've created half of a circle. Now you have created half even if you turn it. Look, this is still half. If I put it straight up and down, this is still half because it's equal on both sides. Okay, so any way that you want your line to face, go ahead. Just make sure that it's going down the middle of your circle and you've created a half. We're going to do the same thing with the rectangle. I'm going to click on that shape. I'm going to choose that blue line.
You could duplicate it.
I could duplicate it. Thank you, Terrence. So this line is way too long, so I'm just going to drag it down. And I'm going to make it a half there. And just like the circle, you can also turn it and make your half going straight up and down. The only difference with a rectangle is that you have to be going either from side to side in the middle, or you have to be going directly from corner to corner. Okay, this right here is not a half, because those are not equal parts. Those are not equal sized. So you have to make sure that you're going straight up and down or straight across or perfectly inside of the diagonal corners. I find the diagonal corners to be the hardest way to draw a half. So I don't typically do it that way, but you can. Okay. So now that we've got the circle size and the square or rectangle size, I'm going to start doing what Terrence suggested, and I'm going to duplicate because now I have it the size that I want it to be. Okay, so go ahead and right here on your half circle, select duplicate and drag it down to thirds. For this one, I do want it to be straight up and down. And there's a reason for this. I'm going to show you the easiest way to create each third. Because sometimes this can get hard to imagine and it can get sloppy and frustrating. So knowing the easiest way can be very helpful. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to make a peace sign. Okay, so take this third and go ahead and drag it up to about the middle, right where you think the middle of the circle is. And Josh, I'm going to invite you to stop because I'm seeing your screen and I'm seeing you aren't doing some things correctly. So go back to the screen that we're on together, please, which is slide 1. And now that you've got it right there in that middle section going to the midpoint, go ahead and duplicate that again. And we're going to turn it so that it meets the middle again. Boom. And this is going to end up looking like a peace sign. Thirds are probably the trickiest fraction to draw. So right now it looks kind of like a clock. So Josh, I'll need you to use those blue lines because looking at yours, the reason we don't use those drawing tools is because your pieces are not equal. Some of your pieces are like teeny, teeny, tiny, and then you got big old fat chunks, and that is not fractions. Fractions have to be equal sized, even sized, which you guys know, because if I were to give somebody a piece that was teeny tiny and then give you a big old chunky piece, you'd be happy, but it would not be fair. I'm going to duplicate that line again, and then I'm going to turn it so that it makes that other side of my peace sign. And there we go. We've got a peace sign. And as you can see, those look pretty even. Those look pretty fair. If this were a big old cookie pizza and it was somebody's birthday and you got this piece, that would be okay with you because the other people are also getting that same size piece. What we don't want to do again, and I'll put it in red because I don't want you to do this, we don't want to draw these ourselves like this because then those aren't fractions. Look, if somebody gets this little piece, right, or if you get this little piece and then you see your younger brother gets this big old piece, the first thing out your mouth is going to be, that's not fair. And you're right, because it's not fractions. So that's why we aren't really using the drawing tools, because it's very difficult to be accurate with them. But these lines, if we make a mistake, all we got to do is click and drag it. Okay. So we've got a third here as well. And that's a third. 1, 2, 3. There are 3 parts. 1, 2, 3. Now I'm going to duplicate that rectangle. So go ahead and duplicate that. And I'm going to drag this down to the middle again. So it looks exactly the same as my half. Excuse me. And again, like I shared, thirds can be very difficult to make. So listen carefully. I'm going to take this bar and I'm going to move it over so that it's in the middle of the half I created. So here's what I mean. You can imagine this is where the line used to be, right? So I just tried to move it over to cut it in half on this side. So do that for me. Take that line, this line right here, and cut that little half that you created in half again. And that's going to make 1/3 right over here. And now we're going to duplicate that and we're going to move it over to the other side. So I'm going to take it over here. See this? So now instead of putting it on the left side, I've put it over here on the right side. Okay. Now I can erase those imaginary lines that I created. And I can see that I've got 3 pieces. Now, in my mind, it looks like this middle piece is a little bit bigger. So I'm going to drag this over until I think they're about the same size. Boom. See how easy it is to fix when we use that shapes tool instead of that drawing tool? So much easier. Okay. We're going to do one more together today, and then we'll talk about adjusting this work since we're kind of out of time. Okay. Go ahead and get ready for the 4th. So again, go back up to that half and duplicate that bar. And I'm going to drag it down here and I'm going to turn it straight up and down. And again, if it's not in the middle exactly where I want it to be, I can just click and move it. very easily. So that's not in the middle, it's too big. Boom, lovely. Okay, and then I'm going to duplicate it again. And what I'm going to do is turn it so that it makes a plus sign inside of my circle. And as you can see, that's not in the middle. So I'm going to drag it until it makes the same size pieces. So again, if you think of this as your favorite dessert, maybe a nice apple pie from Christmas or a nice pumpkin pie from Thanksgiving, maybe it's a chocolate cake for a special event, go ahead and think about, are these the same size? Would I be okay if I gave my grandma this piece and I gave me this piece? Would that be the same? Would grandma get the same? Or is grandma going to say, you're being selfish, you took more than me? That was a great grandma voice, wasn't it? So we're going to look here and make sure that they're equal, they're even. Okay. Awesome. You're getting the hang of it, kiddos. I can see on your screens. This is looking very impressive. So Steve, remember we're going to use that blue line tool because those 6s and 8s are starting to look a little messy.
It's the best way I could draw the 8 one. If I use the lines, and it will just take up the entire circle.
It will not if you do what I will show you because we're not there yet. So go ahead and do it, please. Alrighty, now we're going to duplicate that half from that rectangle and drag it down here to the 4th in the exact same place. And then we will duplicate it again, and we're going to turn it. Boom. And I'm going to put this in the middle. So you will notice that it's not long enough. All I gotta do is click and drag. And then look, that bottom piece is a lot smaller. So I'm going to move it up. Boom. There we go. And I got a 4th. Okay, we're going to pause right there for the day, and we're going to kind of modify some of our work. All right, and this is okay. I kind of expected this because I knew we had so many notes to take today. You now have examples of how to create halves, thirds, and fourths. 6s and 8s will be really quick for us tomorrow because we'll be masters at half, thirds, and fourths. You're going to use this information today to complete slide 1. We're going to do this together. So get a little writing utensil ready down here. Get your favorite color. I'm going to ask you to do the ones that you've seen. I want you to do problem 1 on slide 2. So circle 1. I want you to do problem 3 on slide 2. So circle 3. You're not going to do 2. We haven't learned 2 yet. If you want to give it a shot and see if you're right tomorrow, that's fine. But I do want you to do 1 and 3 for sure. Okay. Go ahead and go to slide 3. Slide 3 has circles. You have only learned 4. So I want you to circle the 4. You're not going to do 5 or 6. We're going to do those tomorrow. So that's why we're not Xing them out because they'll be there tomorrow, but we are going to do 4 today. Okay. Go ahead and go to slide 4. Slide 4 has 5ths and 6ths. We haven't learned these yet, so you're not going to do anything on slide 4. So you have 3 problems to do today. On slide 2, you have 1 and 3. On slide 3, you have number 4. Okay. Go ahead and go to slide 5. It says, how successful do you feel with today's target? So today you were asked to partition or cut shapes. Do you feel great? Do you feel like you almost got it? Do you feel like you're not sure yet? And you're going to drag that up by the goal to tell me how you're doing. Okay. Go to slide 6 for me, please. Slide 6 will still be done. As always, you have 15 minutes of Zearn to complete. If you click this link, it will take you right to where Zearn needs to be. If you are not remembering your Zearn login, you are in luck because I left it inside of your activities. So if you go to your activities and you scroll down, there's your Zearn login information right there in front of your face. You have it right there. So no excuses on not completing. So Zearn for 15 minutes and then Prodigy. Okay. When you are done, you can go ahead and click on the check. I will look over your work and I will send it back to you so that you have it ready for tomorrow.